Welcome, welcome to you snowbirds. We're dreaming of a white Christmas next year. Amen? Brother Morris is busily on his way to his job, South Carolina. Asked me to fill in. I'll assure you that he's been doing a great job as far as I'm concerned, both with the technology on the screen as well as an open Bible. If you want to turn to Genesis chapter 13, there's something significant about Genesis 13 that ties in with exactly what I was planning and prepared to teach. Genesis 13, that's how the Lord speaks to us through his word. I could have the best outline on the screen, and I hope the outline helps us as we move along, but we get the real help firsthand from the Word of God as we read it. And I'm here to back up Pastor Joe, who has us on this Bible reading schedule, and today's reading in the Old Testament is Genesis 13 and 14. I always try to read at least one chapter of this Bible reading schedule before I leave the house or before I have breakfast. I'm encouraging you to do the same. It'll help you in your spiritual growth. You should desire the word, and you should make sure you schedule it in. And again, most everything that happens in a church is very serious business. So singing helps prepare our hearts. It helps us to forget about our struggles, trials, and temptations that we all go through. So I usually try to bring a little humor to the pulpit. I don't have the microphone. Well, yes, it is down here. I guess I can put it on later. But I'd like to share a little humor, especially as it relates to being a substitute preacher. A minister was called upon to substitute for the regular preacher, in this case the regular teacher, who had failed to reach the church because he was delayed in the first snowstorm of the year. We didn't get to the punchline yet. The speaker began by explaining the meaning of a substitute. If you break a window, he said, and then place a piece of cardboard there instead, that is a substitute. After the message, a woman who had listened very carefully shook hands with him and, wishing to compliment him, said, "You were no substitute, you were a real pain." Spelled P-A-N-E. I hope I won't be a real pain to you today, but if I can make you smile a little bit, that'll make it easier to accept the challenge of the subject today is money. Money. Many churches in the South decided to hold united services. The leader was a Baptist and proud of his denominational heritage. I hope we are too. This is another joke, however. How many Baptists are here tonight, he asked on the first night of the meeting. All except one lady raised her hand. "Lady, what are you?" asked the leader. "I'm a Methodist," meekly replied the little old lady. "Why are you a Methodist?" asked the Baptist preacher. "Well," said the little old lady, "my grandparents were Methodists. My mother was a Methodist. My late husband was a Methodist." "Well," said the leader, "just suppose all your relatives had been morons. What would that have made you?" "Oh, I see. A Baptist, I suppose," the little lady replied meekly. How many Baptists are here? You don't need to. Any Methodists? They were good people back when. I went to a Bible college that was started by a Methodist. "Pastor, say deacon, a mule died out in front of the church." "Where's Brother Cody? He's a deacon." "Well, it's the job of you ministers to look after the dead. Why tell me about it?" he said. "You're right," the pastor said. "It is my job. But we always do notify the next of kin." Well, that was a pretty weak one. There's some snow out on the front. If you deacons want to take care of it, no, wait till after. It's melting as fast as it comes down. We'll close our joke book on this one. They have all sorts of new services today. I just heard recently about a dial a prayer service for atheists. You call a number and nobody answers. You'll get that later if you didn't get it already. Do we have something on the screen, man? Good. I got I guess this is called a tablet here. If anybody knows how to connect the tablet to the screen, it may help me to know what's going on behind my back. Putting your finances in order. I don't know if I have the right password or not, but I do have 100% charge. If anybody, Dennis or somebody's free to come help me, know how to program this tablet to the screen. Genesis chapter 13, verse 1. And Abraham went up out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him into the south. Many times we're tempted to think we ought to go to the south too. Before we start reading the Bible, we ought to make sure we're praying, Lord, give me something from the Bible today for me personally. A lot of people leave the north because of the cold weather. They go south because it's warmer. They don't realize how many hurricanes they're going to face down there and all kinds of other problems, but they'd rather go south than stay north. Expenses are a little less down there because of the heating. Abraham was very what? Say it with me if you're there. Abraham was very. It's not a sin to be rich, folks. You don't become more spiritual the more poor you become. It's okay to be rich according to many examples in the Bible. And so it should be your goal to serve the Lord and to earn all the money you can in this life. But you need to know what to do with that money and how to earn it honestly. Many people today are rich, but they got there dishonestly. That would be not glorifying to God. Abraham was chosen of God, I think, because he knew how to be a successful husbandman or a farmer. He had lots of animals, lots of sheep, lots of goats and camels and gold. And verse 2 says he was rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold. Let me, as your teacher today, encourage you, if you don't have any money in gold or silver, it'd be time to do so. There may be an emergency crisis coming financially, and in order to buy food and pay your rent or your mortgage, if you have one, it'd be good to have some money in gold and silver. You say, where would I put it? Well, you'd hide it away somewhere where nobody would find it. You could put it in a bank, but they charge money for you to put it in their safe deposit boxes. But that's one possibility. But banks do collapse too during a financial crisis. They lock the doors, and you may not be able to get in there to get it. So again, let me encourage you. This is a practical church, a practical Bible to say, here's a man that was rich, chosen of God, because not only was he rich, but he must have had good character to be rich. We're going to see his good character later on in this chapter. And again, we'd like to encourage people to come here from other countries. Immigrants come, whether they're legal or not legal, we'd like them to come. And by putting verses like that on the screen would help them to be able to see it until they get used to using a Bible. You have a Bible, you have the screen. That way you're getting double the impact of the verses that we're trying to teach. I'm going to be asking a lot of questions. In the Sunday school hour, it's normally more of a give and take process. During the next hour, you wouldn't want to dare interrupt your Pastor Joe with a question or with a comment, but I'm saying I'm opening up the floor for that this morning. It's a special Sunday. The regular teacher's out of here, and I'm in here to be a pain in your saddle, if I can be, maybe to mention some things that would be controversial. But remember, I'm just an evangelist now out of this church. I don't have any authority as a pastor. We only have one pastor per church at this point. Some churches have many pastors. They could have a youth pastor. That should be one of the goals of this church, to have a youth pastor, to have a Spanish pastor, to have a Portuguese pastor, to have, what's the other major? To have a French Creole pastor. This building sits empty Sunday afternoon. We could run 3 services here, 2 more in the afternoon if we had somebody that would lead those in those languages, to teach them language, but until they learn that language, to teach them their language through the Bible in their language. Again, I'm only throwing ideas out there. If you know Spanish or Portuguese or French Creole, you could help attract people to this church with the idea that we want to someday have a biblical church under the name New England Baptist Church until it became organized and could have its own building too and its own members apart from this church. Money drives. Money is important to everyone, says the screen, if we go back there. How do we learn about money? Who can tell me? What do you know about money, and if you know anything about it, where did you learn it? Esther? My father. When our children grew up, as soon as they were old enough to work, of course, they worked in the house to earn special privileges, to earn money. Most parents are spoiling their children by not letting them do work in the house. And it falls back on us parents. Now that Dennis left the house and all other 6 of our children left, I have to take out the trash of all things. And I get stuck with a few other jobs that my wife reminds me of. But work never hurt anybody. We need to teach our children to work early and long and not reward them with, what's that thing called that parents give their kids? A what? Allowance, yeah. Your children don't get an allowance unless they're helping with the expenses of the church by working. Our son, our daughters worked at the bakery. I don't know if all 5 of you, how many daughters do we have? 5, I guess. Did all of you work at the bakery next door where we could supervise, where we knew these were good, honest, conservative type people? We could observe them and watch them closely. I wouldn't have sent them over to McDonald's to work as 13, 14, 15. I don't know how old they were when they first started. McDonald's used to be here in the square. McDonald's attracts a lot of unsaved, ungodly, and worldly young people. But right here, we were knowing that they were being surrounded by good conservative people. Dennis, our son, got a paper route to earn money. We used to go sell Christmas cards, anniversary cards. We'd sell seeds, anything that people would buy door to door. We learned how to sell people things, and we were earning a profit. It's not a sin to earn a profit. It's not a sin to earn money and save some of it. But you've got to do something before you save money. What's the first thing you want to do anytime you earn money? Tithe. That's an unusual word for most of us, but that simply means 10%. Malachi in the Old Testament, all the way through the New Testament, now that we're not under the law, people say, well, I don't have to tithe. We're under grace now. Under the Old Testament law, if you murdered somebody, you were to be murdered yourself by the government, under the authority of the government. Now that we're under grace,